Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Words or Less, the podcast. I am your host, Ray Harkins, and we're at episode number 35. 35. Let's get some business out of the way, and then I'll talk with our guest. Propertyofzach.com. Visit that site. They are starting to post some great year-end lists of all the staffers that write for them. And there's no more fun time of the year than a retrospective, a look back on what music has come out and what music has perked up everybody's ear. And the place that you should check it out the most is propertyofzach.com. So we love our partnership with them, and it will continue to go on and on and on. Also, review the show on iTunes and visit the website, 100wordspodcast.com. You can see stuff that happens during the week in between shows at the website. And then, review the show. I love it. I would really appreciate that. If you wrote a few nice words about the show or gave some stars to us in some way. Business out of the way. And I'm going to bring it down a note. I unfortunately lost my grandmother, who I will affectionately call Nana from here on out because that is what I called her. She was older and she suffered from Alzheimer's. So essentially, the woman that I knew and helped raise me, because my parents were divorced at an early age, and so my mom had to rely a lot on her parents to either, help pick me up from school or take care of me during the daytime, and because my mom was a school teacher and she was working full time. So obviously she couldn't do all that, and she didn't really want to put me in daycare. So my grandparents were instrumental in shaping who I am today. And so my Nana passed away last week, and it's really tough. I mean, anytime you lose someone who you care about, especially from a family perspective, it cuts deep. Obviously, it's not as deep as what my mom's going through currently, losing her mother. And it's just, trying to act normal. Like, I'm still doing this podcast, and I'm still, working a few days and just trying to kind of get yourself rooted. Because that's what I've always experienced. When I say always, there's only been one other person that's really close to me that has passed away, and that was my father. But I just remember this sort of, first of all, the numb feeling where it's like, this doesn't really feel real. And it doesn't feel real until you're sitting there at the funeral home, either with the person's ashes or with the person as they're lying in the coffin. And I just remember with my father giving his eulogy and, being really proud of myself for being able to kind of make it through, because I know that my dad would have loved to hear me say those things and did know that I felt all these things, whether or not I expressed them as concisely as I did within, a eulogy. Throughout my whole life, I've made sure that he felt that. And I've been asked to give the eulogy at my grandmother's ceremony, and I don't know, I really, really like doing these things, as morbid as it sounds. I just love being able to kind of take a person's life, be able to distill it down to your own personal experience, and then be able to stand up in front of your family and friends and be able to get that off your chest. It's something that is so cathartic for me. And I really, like I said, I look forward to it. And when my parents asked me if I wanted to be a part of the ceremony in that way, I in my own mind, I was already like, I'm going to do this whether you ask me or not. Obviously all of us deal with loss in our lives. And I hope that the one thing that I tell people that go through these traumatic experiences, whether they are sudden or unexpected, it's just the fact that you have to revel in whatever your experiences were with that person. You can't look at the regrets you may have, or you didn't say this, or you didn't say that, fortunately, with both of these circumstances that I have personally encountered, I don't have any regrets. Those people knew exactly how I felt about them, even though my Nana was not able to comprehend me saying, I love you the past 10 years of her life. She still always acted like she knew me. And when I did remind her who I was, there was that little spark of recognition and be like, okay, yes, like you are my grandson. But I really encourage people to just hold on to that. That's the only thing that we have to really get us through the most difficult times, is looking back and being like, dude, it was fucking awesome that my Nana took me to Toys R Us to buy me a World War II video game. She bought me 1942. It's such a distinct memory that I have. She was always spoiling the shit out of me. Not only just because she had the means to do so, but that was how she really showed her love, and just was, wanted to make sure that I had all the fun stuff that I wanted. And having those trips to like the bookstore, Readmore Bookstore in Las Vegas, Nevada, that no longer exists, and being able to pick out, the newest Hardy Boy novel or the newest comic book, those are things that I'm just going to hold with me for the rest of my life. And just knowing how much she obviously cared for me. So yeah, if there's anything that I want to impart in this message, is the fact that time is fleeting. Obviously, you hear all the cliches that people say when they experience loss. But make sure that those people that are close to you know what's up. They know how you feel about them, because those are the only things that people usually regret later on in life, where it's like, oh man, I wish I would have said I love you to this person, or I wish I would have, really been able to kind of show how I feel. Don't fucking wait. Like, seriously, there's no point in hiding those feelings. Like, everybody needs to be vulnerable, and if you don't want to expose yourself to other people, you're going to live a pretty solitary life. And I don't encourage that for anybody, because it's obviously so uplifting to have. You don't have to have a lot of people. You can have 2, 1, maybe 3 people. It doesn't really matter, as long as you hold those people close and they know exactly how you feel. So yes, this whole episode is in dedication to my Nana, and may she be in a much better place. And hopefully I'll be able to see her one day. Anyways, moving on to more lighter things. I sat down with James Carroll, the lead vocalist from Make Do and Mend. I was really excited to sit down with him. We were at the Fest in Florida in late October, so you can see the conversation's a little, I wouldn't say dated, because there wasn't anything that we talked about that could date the conversation, but that's how long it sometimes takes for me to get these episodes up. So we sat in a park in downtown Gainesville, Florida. So there'll be some moments where the conversation might seem a little herky-jerky, because I had to, edit out the police sirens and edit out old women coming up to us asking if this was the entrance to the federal building. But yeah, James is a really good guy. I've only got to know him better over the past year of my life. And just to kind of watch Make Do and Mend, ascend into where they're at right now. It's just awesome to see a band of this caliber be able to kind of have, a wider level of exposure, and it's really cool. So anyways, James and I talked about everything from their experience on Warped Tour, to kind of, what he does in order to, keep his fire going. And yeah, a lot of cool things. So I hope you enjoy. And I hope my opening monologue didn't bring you down too much. I'm feeling okay, and I want you to feel okay too. So enjoy this conversation. Just watching the band and like what you guys have been able to do, where it's like even though you're younger, for lack of a better term, I mean younger than me, so it's younger. But you play a style of music that obviously fits within the context of what a lot of other bands are doing in regards to, your balancing composures, your tighter fights. Like, these are bands that are playing music that could have fit in with the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And to see that all kind of come up at once was really cool. And did you feel it and notice it where it was just like you kind of had, there was like a kinship with a lot of other different bands that all started at different times and from different scenes in a way?
Yeah, definitely. And it had very little in the beginning stages. It had very little to do with like recognizing it as something substantial,
of course,
as opposed to we met Title Fight like years and years and years ago. We actually, like, when we first started this band, and we're playing shows in Connecticut, and Warren started playing shows like outside. This was back in like the MySpace days,
of course.
And I remember I sent the Title Fight MySpace a message saying like, "Hey guys, what's up? Like, your band's super cool." And this was before anything that they like. I think they had a split out with Balance and Composure's old band.
Oh, got it.
And so like, said something like, "Hey, we want to book shows like around the area. Like, let's
trade some shows.
Like,
yeah.
You come to Connecticut. We'll play in Connecticut. We'll do a show in Pennsylvania, and then we'll do like New York City or something like that, or like New York. We'll like." And they didn't answer back.
Right.
And like, how on MySpace you could send the message and you see
Read.
it was red.
Yeah.
So they didn't answer back after like a week, and I'm like, these
fucking assholes. Yeah.
And so I sent him another message back. I was like, you know what, man? You guys think you're so cool, like.
Really, you put it like you kind of went at him.
Oh yeah, I was like, you know what, man? Like, yeah, we're a new band or whatever, like, and we're not very popular or anything like that, but like, the least you could do is send us a new message back saying like, no thanks.
Right.
And like, they sent a message back like right after that, and I forget who it was. It was either Shane or Jamie, and they were like, hey, like, sorry, we're 14,
right.
Like, we can't tour.
We can't leave.
We can't play outside of Pennsylvania, like, because our parents have to like drive us to our shows.
Right.
And they're like, we didn't mean anything by it, like, sorry. And I totally like had my foot in my mouth. I was like, fuck, I'm a dickhead.
You're like, damn it. Yeah. You're like, I was very emotional about this.
Yeah.
I accuse you of something that I just didn't know.
Clearly, I flew off the handle.
Right.
So it's really funny.
I think that story in and of itself puts the whole thing in context. Where it's just like a lot of people. I think a lot of, when I say people, I say like, kids that come to shows and like don't, even though more of the behind the scenes back end stuff is more apparent now, like people kind of know how bands work, but the casual fan like just goes to a show and like, goes home. But like that story totally puts it in context where it's like the idea of these bands just kind of quote unquote coming from nowhere, where it's like, because that's what every kid feels like, where'd these dudes come from? Like, Make Do Men's Signs to Rise, like, oh, like, they have records before that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we kind of have a lot of stuff before that.
So, there's, I think from an insular perspective, like an inside perspective, there's very little consciousness of, like, how these things are perceived by the outside world.
Of course.
As it pertains to a movement of bands or what have you, and we love these bands, like you said, Touche Amore, on down the line, because A, they make great music.
Yep.
They make fucking perfect music. But they're our friends, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and I think too, to your point, I think a lot of it too, it's like, because every single band from that, whatever this, like you said, movements, even though it's like, it's difficult to put into words.
Yeah, totally.
It's like they've all originated from the same beginnings, but they've obviously done so many different things sonically. Where it's like each band obviously has their own thing.
Yep.
But they all can tour together and be friends, and
definitely.
So you yourself, yes. Always born and raised in the Connecticut area, East Coast, or where?
Yeah, I was born in Hartford.
Okay.
And grew up.
So you love the Whalers, right?
Yeah, did a lot, and when they left, it was a huge bummer. But you know what? Like, it's the funniest thing because there's this like resurgence now of like Whaler pride.
Really?
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because
are they trying to get the team back? Like that's what the whole? Or
no,
is just,
not really.
Yeah, just repping it.
They tried a bunch of years ago to get them back, and it didn't work out. And we had we had an like an AHL team,
Right.
The Hartford Wolfpack, that
Okay.
were like the New York Rangers farm team.
Sure.
So that, like, once the Whalers left, we got the Wolfpack, and that was the thing. And then somebody bought the Wolfpack and then changed their name to the Connecticut Whale. So now they're the Connecticut Whale, and so there's like this whole like resurgence. And so people, like, we did for Warped Tour, we did like a Whalers rip-off shirt.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Had like the Whalers logo, and then it said "Make to Men."
Yep.
And people would call and be like, "Yeah, man, Whalers," and I'll be like, "Motherfucker." Everyone hated the Whalers.
Totally.
Everyone hated the Whalers. Like, I really liked them a lot just because, I was young and they were at home
Of
team or
course.
whatever. But, dude, people called them the Hartford Failers because they were so bad.
Right.
And, they left Connecticut because no one was going to the games.
Right.
Like,
It didn't make any economical sense.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But you said the Bristol area?
What's that?
The Bristol, Connecticut area, that's where you were born and raised?
Hartford.
Hartford, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know why Bristol just went in
Yeah.
my head. Yeah,
Close
Hartford.
enough.
Yeah.
Fairly close. Born in Hartford, and sort of.
Born and raised there, like you basically spent all your time there as you were growing up.
Totally. And then I went to school in a town called Willimantic. It's like 40 minutes outside of Hartford.
Okay.
It's like where UConn, University of Connecticut, is like a big school. It's like the town right over from there.
Storrs, Connecticut, right?
Storrs, Connecticut. Yeah. So
for
like
sure.
it's all in Windham County, and then.
Got it. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I got 3 brothers.
Oh wow.
Yeah, totally.
Were your parents trying for a girl and they kept just going for it? Like, another boy.
I don't think so. I don't know.
They always wanted a big family, I guess.
I guess so.
Just happened that way.
I guess I've never really like learned the rationale behind.
I'm so sensitive to that now because it's like, my wife and I, we only want one kid. Had a boy. We were both stoked on that.
Yeah.
But you see, like once you actually start to look around at other families and how they've kind of, grown up or what they're trying to do, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got, one brother, like 3 sisters or whatever, and they were like, oh, like clearly they were trying to have that one sex. They wanted to have a boy and a girl or whatever. But that's funny. So, family of dudes.
Family of dudes, and I don't know if my mom ever really wanted a girl. Maybe she did.
Yeah.
I think she got lucky having 4 boys.
I was gonna say boys are pains in the ass. Right. Boys are technically easier to raise.
Yeah.
Like straight up.
And like I don't know if my dad could have raised a girl, to be perfectly honest. No offense towards him. I just think,
just wasn't equipped. Wasn't wired for it.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
So did your mom feel outnumbered, or she felt? Because
not necessarily. We're all really pretty easy dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah. None of us are really like. I mean, my parents are great in that. I feel as though they're sort of like the last generation of like stand-up human beings, to a certain extent. I just see so many parents who just raise their kids like absolute garbage.
Of course.
And so like growing up and becoming an adult, and I look back and I'm like, wow, my parents definitely did not fuck up.
Right.
I mean, there are pitfalls along the way everywhere.
Well, of course, yeah.
But I think they did a nice job.
So what did your parents do for a living?
My dad runs a roofing company.
Oh, okay.
And then growing up, my mom actually worked for an insurance company.
Okay.
Like full time.
Okay.
As Matt, my next youngest brother. And I like came up through school, and then she stopped doing that just so she could be home more.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, raising 4 boys is kind of a full-time job in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your dad obviously works with his hands and is out there. Like that's what I definitely a theme that I've caught on in talking to a lot of people is that I'm personally, I don't know if I'd say scared, but like a lot of like I don't know how to do shit with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to fix anything.
Yeah.
And like I think that's definitely symptomatic of a lot of like, 20 to 35-year-olds where it's just like, I mean, partially just because I don't like to do any of that.
Yeah.
Whereas like some of my friends are like, oh, I fucking love fixing stuff.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I think that the people that don't know how to do stuff outnumber the people that do know how to do stuff. So I wonder that sort of, like you're saying, that last generation of like.
See, you're absolutely right. And that's sort of like, I'm sort of in the same place as I get older. In that, especially since my dad did know how to do all that stuff,
Right.
I think I was sort of just like, oh, Dad does it.
Right.
Like, you know, Dad's
when
got
you got a person, you got a person.
I've got,
yeah.
dude, and like, he's also a mechanic, so like, you know,
dude, he's in it. Yeah.
Dude, he's just like, he's the consummate man. And so, you know, I never really learned much about, you know, cars and, you know, things like that. So now, over the course of the past maybe 5 years or so, I've really put a lot of effort to try to become more capable.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, especially saying, like you said, you know, there are more people who don't know how to do than do how to do. We live in a country of fucking morons.
Totally.
So, you know.
Yeah.
I'd like to...
You want to carry that torch.
I would like to be on the other end of things. So I'm trying. But it's tough.
Yeah, I know, for sure. And so are you the like middle brother, or what?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
Yeah.
Okay, so you escorted the way for all of the other brothers in regards to the way that.
I think so. I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where I am not so sure how much I led them as much as in a lot of ways they led me.
Interesting.
You know, you met Matt.
Yep.
He's next in line to me, and you know, he's a doer. Like, you know, he's very collected, very you know, straight ahead, on top of it, and so, you know, in a lot of ways, I lean on him for that. You know,
you feel each other's each other's strengths. Like, I mean, that's like good relationships.
Yeah, totally. Like I can be an absolute space cadet sometimes.
Well, yeah, like you're saying, relationships, like, obviously, like, you can fill each other's holes, and you see what...
Yeah, totally. So, like, you know, I can be an absolute space cadet sometimes, you know, so there's definitely a lot of, like...
you lean on one another.
Yeah, sure, and then our younger brother, Jack, who's 20, he'll be 21 in April, is just, like, I feel like he just got everything, you know? I think that he got Matt and he got me, and they just squished together. And, you know, he's like, he's this tall, handsome, like, just like, super charismatic
just
dude.
On top of it, just,
Yeah, and, you know, I don't know where he comes from. We joke all the time that he's the best Carroll by far.
Like, we perfected in this last one.
Yeah.
We tried with all these other ones.
Totally. And then we've got a little brother, Luke, who's 12. He'll be 13 in February.
Oh wow, that's a big gap. Like, between
totally.
the two.
I was 13 when he was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been weird to watch your parents kind of raise another kid in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
I mean, just like having a baby around when I can't, like, I imagine myself when I was 13 and be like, the concept of having like a little baby around, be like, oh wow, that's weird.
Totally. Even being like, you know, not grown up, but 13, you know, a little bit older and at least cognizant, like, watching my parents raise him and sort of like understanding the differences and, like, you know, how they were when I was a kid and how they are, you know, with him. It's really interesting.
No, that's actually true, because you obviously learn as you go along, and then obviously, like, so much information changes over year to year as far as, like, oh, this is what you should do for your child, as opposed to you know, like, I mean, my mom fucking smoked up until she was like 6 months pregnant with me, and she felt me kick, and I always blame her for my asthma. I'm like, Mom, I have asthma because of you.
Your fault.
Yeah. And so, kind of, you know, as you were growing up, like, the you know, like, going into junior high and high school and stuff like that, you know, where did you, well, for one, where was kind of the intro as far as independent music was concerned? And then two, kind of what was your sort of, you know, your high school experience? Like, were you, you know, were you into sports? Were you kind of like, you know, what group did you find yourself fitting in, if at any at all?
Yeah. Well, so I was definitely like a product of like 90s radio rock.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, dude, when I was in elementary school, you know, there was like, that was the thing. There were still rock bands on the radio making good music.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist now.
No.
Like, you know, I feel like that, like, kids these days.
Well, I mean, kids don't find out about music listening to the radio.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. But, you know, so I was a big, like, you know, big Third Eye Blind guy, you know, stuff like that. And then so I was listening to the radio, and then you know, Blink-182 and Green Day started being played on the radio.
Huge, yeah.
And so, you know, it was just like those songs, and then the Offspring had a song on the radio.
Of course, you know? early '90s. I mean, they say what '94 is the year that punk broke, where it was like that started to explode everything with Green Day's Dookie and
totally. I suppose so.
Yeah.
And so those songs started coming on the radio, and immediately from there, I'm not sure. You know, I don't remember the exact sort of like light switch, but like I remember hearing those songs and thinking to myself, this is something different. You know, this is something. Yes, it's on the radio. Yes, it's like sort of commingled with this other stuff, but like there's something different here.
Right.
And so I mean, obviously, like most dudes my age, got super into Blink-182.
Yeah.
And you know, from there was able to start digging. You know, from there, I mean, seeing what bands they were touring with, you know, buying the records, seeing what bands they thanked in the liner notes, and they came out with those DVDs.
Oh yeah.
And like, you know, so like, oh, Tom DeLonge's wearing a Pennywise shirt. What's that all about? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, he really likes this band called Jimmy Eat World. Who's that?
Right.
And so, you know, it was so on from there, and it was from there that I got into bands like, you know, like GB and Youth of Today and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like in and around the time of like H2O and AFI and Rancid.
Right.
So it was, you know, it was just sort of like, it's like the kid. Blink-182 was like the kid in high school who like is sort of like the edgy dude,
right?
But like is also friends with like the football players.
Yeah.
And so like there's this sort of like there's these two worlds, and like he's just right here.
Right, you're on the cusp. Yeah.
And you know, as soon as you start hanging out with him, all of his other friends are on this side of the wall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, because you look at it like an onion, where it's just like, you know, you start to peel away the layers. That's when you start to get into more, you know, stuff that obviously takes work to get to.
Right.
And it's like, you know, and that's what makes music so cool, where it's like people can get as involved with it as they want.
Totally.
Where it's like once they hit a layer and they're like, yo, I'm cool. Like, totally. I'm fine here. I mean, obviously people like you and I are like, nope, like, let's keep going.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I think that's, I like the analogy of, like, the, you know, the kid that can get along with, like, you know, can float between groups.
Right. So, like, yeah, I feel as though Blink was, like, the intermediary there. And then, yeah, you know.
And did you, like, in high school, like, and I also find it interesting because you were usually people, like, have that older brother, older sister that's like, oh, here's some cool records. But you obviously didn't have that, so you kind of had that experience to, like.
I'm always super jealous of those people. It's like,
yeah.
I was riding in the car with my friend Andy, who plays in Every Time I Die. Sick name drop, I know.
Yeah, great name drop.
And he was telling me about how his dad used to take him to like their local record store when he was a kid,
right?
And his dad would buy himself a record. Every time they would go, he would buy a record for himself and a record for Andy. Ugh. And he's like, that's how I first heard Youth of Today break down the walls.
Unbelievable.
And I was just like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, you got that shit when you were like 8, dude. Yeah.
Like, you know, that's how I heard Black Flag, and you know, and so to have, you know, I'm certainly jealous of those people, but at the same time, you know, I'm really grateful for the, you know.
You forged your own path.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, like, you could, you know, you always have that experience where it's like, you know, if a friend is exposing you to stuff and you start to have all these outside influences, and then especially when you're a teenager and you're so insecure about what's cool,
right?
If all of a sudden if you're like, oh, dude, fucking knock it off, don't like Blink-182 anymore,
yeah.
And you're kind of like, but no, like, that means a lot to me,
yeah.
Like, because there always comes, and so it's like, but you were able to kind of like, you know, blossom on your own without having these like these gateway things where it's like you have to be into this or else.
Right. Yeah, and it's just so weird because I mean, even when, you know, even bands like Blink-182 and Newfound Glory were, you know, touring with hardcore bands.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like
totally.
And so that's, I mean, and that's how, you know, that's how I found out about the Smiths too, like really early on.
Yeah,
like, these like all these worlds. It's sort of just like what we were talking about earlier, like bands that sound nothing alike, like us, Title Fight, Touche, Ladies, what have you, exist in this world.
Right.
You know, kids are able to sort of like have access to these different sounding bands, but still
still feel comfortable,
Yeah,
like in
yeah.
the same context. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you were in high school, did you sports, or were you kind of just like an indoor kid? Like where did you find yourself falling, or did you have a good high school experience?
No, I fucking hated high
Yeah,
school.
it's terrible.
God, it was so bad. I went to a private Catholic high school.
Oh, that's a different experience.
Yeah.
Did you have uniforms?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The whole nine. And it was. I think I wanted to go there.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, when I was a kid, I wanted to go there because I wanted. I've definitely always felt other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a sense of, just sort of separateness from whatever. So I was like, if I go to the public school, it's just so big.
Yep.
There's so many people. All my friends are gonna make all these other friends, and I'm gonna get lost. I'm gonna fall through the cracks.
Okay.
So I was like, here's a smaller school.
Yeah.
Of course, on all the you go to all the like orientation nights, and it's like, we're a community here.
Yeah,
we are
yeah.
a family.
Of course.
Come.
Welcome with open arms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
come join us. And so I think at a young age, I was like, yeah, okay, like I can get down with that. That's what I want.
Right. Yeah.
And so, little did I know, all the kids that went to the private Catholic high school had been going to private Catholic school their entire lives.
Right. Yeah.
So they, like, from kindergarten up until then, they knew it. Like the bonds were set. The fucking the molds were set, and I got in there, and everyone was like, "What the fuck is this?
Who's this guy? Where'd he come from?"
Yeah, totally.
So that was ninth grade that you was junior.
Ninth
Okay,
grade.
yeah. Oh, dude, that's totally hard.
Yeah.
I had that experience when I went to junior high, and it was like, you're able to edge in there a little bit, and there's that element of like, especially with the female persuasion, where they're like, "Who's the new guy?" Because like we've seen all these old guys for a while, like, but that lasts for maybe about 2 weeks.
Yeah, if that existed, it didn't exist for me. It might have been my braces and
your level of awkwardness.
Yeah. But yeah. So my freshman year, I tried super hard.
Right.
I was like, all right, new school, new people. I'm gonna be super nice to everybody. I'm gonna invite them over to my house. Like, I'm gonna try out for the football team.
Okay.
And I went for it. Like, fucking went for it.
Yeah.
And
you committed to it. You were like, I'm gonna do the damn thing.
Yeah, totally. And it fucking crashed and burned. Like, just so bad. No one wanted anything to do with me. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, I was a nerdy little kid.
Yeah,
I was
like, what were you into? Like, what just...
I was into punk rock. And
got it, okay, yeah. You were the music dude, so they were kind of like, I don't know about that guy.
Yeah. I was into punk rock. I read comic books, but, like, not cool comic books. I read fucking Archie comics, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, you're not into like, whatever, Spawn, whatever, cool comics.
Not the cool stuff.
Like, you're like, yo, give me Donald Duck, dude.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And yeah, so it was after my freshman year. I spent the entire year just trying super hard.
Yeah.
And it was after my freshman year that I went from like, I'm gonna try really hard to just fuck this.
Yeah.
Fuck this. Fuck every single one of these people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make their lives a living hell. And so I spent my sophomore, junior, senior year of high school just being the biggest fucking prick.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like, and it's
like outwardly hostile.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was like, I was young. I was into the music that I was into, and it was
That's nihilistic in and of itself, right?
It was, and it was that time where kids started getting into drinking and trying drugs, and like what you're supposed to do as a fucking archetypical American high school age kid, like start trying drinking, start trying smoking weed,
totally.
Now it's time to start dating,
doing babes, right,
totally.
Yeah,
like the whole thing, and so given that sense of other, and I mean we've talked about being straight edge and what have you, I was just like, all right, that's what they're into.
Yeah.
Well, fuck that.
Here's this opposite reaction.
So this is I'm going over here, like all the way.
Right.
So it was then that I knew what straight edge was, and I got I started hearing about straight edge from the bands that I was listening to.
Sure, of course.
And so I was like, okay, this is like
this summarizes what I want to do.
These people are clear thinking, but there's there's a real sense of anger there.
Of course,
this sort of isolation and this fighting against the
the common experience.
Exactly.
Right.
So that was me for high school.
That's funny.
And luckily, there were other people. I found other people in my high school who weren't really doing it for the same reasons as I were. I think we're sort of just like kind of just fucked up in their own right.
Sure.
And didn't want to be a part of the
that crew over there.
The archetype. And so just spent high school just making people miserable.
That's funny. Did you ever? Because I definitely I think that was my sophomore year. I wasn't outwardly hostile, but I definitely had same sort of reaction where I was just like, fuck this, how you guys are handling it. And I remember, and this is something that I mean, looking back, I'm like, I can't even believe I did this, but like I did the whole pee in the punch at a fucking party.
Oh, did you really?
It was so, like I like took a glass to the bathroom, peed in it, came back. But the whole reason it made me so mad was because we were over at like just a parent's house, and it was the whole like cool parent, like, I'll let you guys drink as long as you stay here.
Right. Oh my god.
And that, like, I mean, at like 15 years old, like, that made my blood boil. I was like, what? I'm gonna fucking stop this. I mean, in hindsight, I was like, not the wisest of moves.
Dude, that shit's great. I fucking love that. That's right up my alley. It was my senior prom, and I dated this girl who she was totally sweet. She was great.
Right.
And she was very like, she was like of that world,
right?
But like, came from like a really good family, like super nice,
good head and shoulders,
absolutely, 100%. So like, fit in with that world because that's where 99% of people fit in, but also wasn't a fucking idiot,
right.
And I think, looking back, I think probably the reason she liked me was because you
were edgy, dude.
And so we went to senior prom, and then afterwards she was like, well, I really want to go to my friend's house. They're having like, the sleepover party and like bonfire and the whole thing. I was like, fuck it, if that's what you want to do, whatever, I really could fucking take it or leave it.
Right.
And so we went, and it was the same deal. Like, parents have the beer, and like, as long as they're here, I know they're safe. Like, blah blah blah.
Right.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
And so like everybody's drinking beer from the cooler, and the dad comes down with a cooler of beer, and I'm like, hey sir, how are you? Like, thank you for having me. I'm really thirsty. Could I have a glass of water? And he looked at me like I had two fucking heads.
I could imagine.
He was like, there's beer.
Right.
There's beer right there. And I'm like, yeah, I don't drink beer. Like, I would love a glass of water if you don't mind. And he was just sort of like,
he was like disgusted. Like, who's this kid?
Yeah, right. Like, went to the kitchen, brought me back a glass of water.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so, like, what was your first band? Like, what did that?
My first band ever, I was.
Was that in high school?
Yeah, I think I was a freshman in high school.
Oh, okay.
And I had been playing guitar for a little bit, and I was at a birthday party of somebody. I was at somebody's birthday party, and there was another kid there who went to the public high school.
Got it.
And he had just bought a guitar from one of my best friends, who also went to the public high school. And so I was like talking to him, and I was like, hey man, like, I heard you just bought Tom's guitar from him. Like, that's super cool. I play guitar too. Like, whatever. And he's like, oh, cool, man. Yeah, like, I actually sing in this band, and we're like looking for a new guitar player. Our like guitar player's moving away. And I was like, well, yeah, man, fuck yeah, like,
let's do this.
I would love to try out.
Right.
Turns out it was a new metal band.
Oh, what was the band's name?
It was called Silent Phoning.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
that's a perfect band name for that.
Yeah, total like Papa Roach, System of a Down.
Yeah.
And so I think I was the way that a lot of young kids are with like when they start their first bands. They're like, it's not exactly what I want to be doing, but like, it's a band.
It gives you a taste of like, oh, this is something that I could potentially do.
Played in that band for like a minute. We played one show. It was at another birthday party.
Nice.
In like a backyard.
Of course.
We didn't have a drummer.
Yeah. Oh, how did you play?
We just played. Just played. I don't really remember exactly how it went.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
We didn't got a drummer, but listen to our Metal Zone distortion pedals. And
Totally. And so that was that. They kicked me out of the band.
Okay.
Because
you didn't fit the mold. You didn't have dreadlocks, probably.
I wanted to cover Jimmy Eat World. That was the thing.
That was the breaker. They're like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Who is he trying to bring this shit in?
Yeah,
for?
I was like, you know what? I was like, these songs are cool and all, and like I dig it, whatever. I was like, but like we could do other stuff. Like,
right.
We could, explore these other. I was like, let's cover Jimmy Eat World.
Sure. The artistic differences.
Yeah, and I think that was the breaking point. And so they called me one night, like on my parents' house phone. And, and they're like, hey man, like, it's just not really working out. Like, so that was.
You're like, damn.
Yeah, I was super bummed. So yeah, that was my first band.
But that obviously gave you a taste of like, oh, I would like to continue to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
And then, so like as you like going through high school, like obviously you didn't have a good social experience. Like, did you just kind of coast by in grades? Like, did you have any sense of like kind of like, oh, this would be cool to do this in the future, like job, all that type of stuff?
No, not really. I mean, I knew that I wanted to play in a band. Really, from the time that really for as long as I can really remember.
Right.
I've wanted to play in a band. It's sort of like all I've ever really wanted to do.
Yeah. So that was the train of thought. That was the focal point where it's just like, yeah, like once I just do this band stuff, then obviously everything else can be pushed aside.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because it was the only thing that I actually really liked a lot.
Right.
Right. So I guess I still sort of have like a somewhat juvenile sense of like, not responsibility, but like, just sort of like, yeah, well, I just want to do what I want.
Right.
Like, I just want to do what makes me happy. And like, you know, and so like,
I don't know if I don't know if I feel comfortable calling it juvenile, but I think I would classify that. I mean, you just, regardless of what the economic upshot is from whatever it is that you're doing, you're just following what you're passionate about. And like and that takes a level of commitment that not everybody's willing to take,
Right.
So.
Yeah, certainly. So it's on from there. Then Matt.
Did you go to college and everything, or did you? Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah, that's right. You went to near the Stores, Connecticut area. Yeah. What were you studying there?
I was studying communication. Okay. And I went my freshman, sophomore, and halfway through my junior year.
Okay.
For communication, and I got halfway through my junior year, and I was like, I haven't learned anything. I really I haven't learned shit.
It's true. And
and then I also I was looking at my major requirements, what I had fulfilled in order to
your prerequisites and everything.
And I was like, I also haven't accomplished anything. It's just so I gave it some serious thought, and I was like, what would I rather do other than communication? And so I changed my major to English.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Halfway through my junior year, and I had to bust ass to be able to complete all the requirements that I needed to complete in order to be caught up to someone who was an English major from the very beginning.
Right.
So I did that, and then ended up graduating in 4 years with
nice.
A bachelor's in English. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and not everybody can obviously have that little piece of paper that says, "Hey, I'm smart."
Yeah.
To the real world.
Yeah, it's in a Rubbermaid in a closet somewhere in my apartment.
yeah. So, and that's what I find so funny, where it's just even though it's put. I've always felt awkward putting the bands that I've played in on a resume, but it's you learn so much shit from that.
Yeah. Totally.
Not only real life stuff or real world experience, but actual physical skills, time management and how to take care of finances.
Right.
And,
totally.
But you're and people wouldn't look at that and be like, oh, that's probably equivalent to a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
It's no. And so when did Make Do kind of start to? Was that in college? Was when it started?
That was my freshman year in college. Matt, Mike, and I played in a band while we were all in high school.
Okay.
It was just a fucking pop-punk band. It sounded like Blink-182. Which
as you well should.
Come to think of it now, we should have stuck with it. We'd probably be way more popular.
What was the name of the band?
Oh God, I'm not even gonna say it. It's too embarrassing.
Does any of it still exist on the internet somewhere? You guys have a pure volume page or something?
Somebody played it while we were in Europe. When we were in Europe with La Dispute.
Yeah.
Somebody found it
really?
And started playing it, and it was God.
You were like, who? What?
See, the thing about it is, it's cool. It's cool for me because Matt sang in it.
Okay, yeah.
So I wrote all the music and wrote all the lyrics, but like Matt sang, so he like,
right.
I can just, I have no.
Yeah,
my hands.
Right. You're like, that's in the past.
Yeah,
got
totally.
it. So that was what you guys were doing in high school.
Yeah. So we were trading like embarrassing shit while we were in Europe with La Dis and Title Fight, and one video was a video of Title Fight playing at a bar mitzvah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and then the other one was La Dispute playing at like a nature festival in Michigan. None of them were wearing any shoes. It was, that was
I love those experiences where it's like you get asked to play a show or do something super fucking weird, and then it's like that's just so funny.
When you're that age, it's like, yeah,
of course,
a show
sounds incredible.
Absolutely,
right?
Totally.
Wait, you're gonna pay me $100 to do this?
Totally.
What?
So it's somewhere out there.
Yeah.
But so I was the first one to go away to college. And so my freshman year, it's like, shocker, hated it.
Right.
And like, so just started writing songs, and so like went back to those guys and was like, hey, like I've been writing these songs. Do we want to try to do like
let's check them out?
A band? Matt was like, well, I don't want to sing anymore. I want to play drums. And
yeah,
I was like, okay, well, I'm writing these songs, so I guess I might as well try singing. And
right. And then everything. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I don't get into too much detail because obviously anybody that can read on the Make to Amend lore. But so like once you started to, especially just because you're playing the band with your brother, like how did your parents start to perceive it as far as like oh, you're gonna be doing this?
Yeah, my parents definitely weren't into it for a while. Initially, when we started our first band in high school, my parents were like, okay, well, you can do one of two things. They're like, you can start a band and you can go to the public high school, or you can stay going to the school you're at now and not start a band. Because they're like, we're not going to keep on paying tuition at this school if like your focus is going to be somewhere else.
Right. All you're going to do is go to school and then come home because you want to practice or whatever. Right.
And so I was like, I gave it a lot of thought, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I was like, I'll go to the public school next year.
Yeah.
I was like, it was the end of my sophomore year.
Got it.
And I told my parents that I really wanted to start a band. So I was like, yeah, like I've thought about it, and like I'll go to the public school.
I like how they actually gave you a decision.
Yeah,
like, that's nice.
Well,
I mean.
Well, so I said, and they said, well, no, you're not going to the public school. You're not allowed to go to the public school.
They gave you a choice, but not really.
Yeah, not really. They didn't think I was going to call their bluff.
Right. That's awesome. You're like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't expect you were going to go down this route.
Right. No. So they said I couldn't go to the public school, and so I just started a band anyways.
Right.
So I think they were definitely. I think in high school it was one thing, and then as I got to college, it became something else. Just because they're like, well, you're supposed to be like
finding a profession, whatever.
You're still like. We indulged it when like it's early enough to like divert that you can still go back, but like you're running out of years to like get yourself on the right track here. And so it wasn't until the band started doing like
being gone more
well, from an outsider's perspective,
right? Once you're like, I'm going to Europe, I'm going to Australia, you're like, this might be real.
Okay, like we can buy a van, like there's a label putting out our records, like and so the parents were like, oh, got a record deal, okay, like they're signed, all right, like,
right. This is something tangible. I can hold this contract up.
Right. So it wasn't until then that I think they gave it a little bit more credit,
and especially because like obviously it's like 2 family members in the band.
Yeah, totally.
So they're like, oh, great, like two out of our 4 sons are doing this whole band thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but they've, like you said, they understand it a little bit better, and like now
they definitely do.
Do they come out to your shows? They understand, like.
My mom does, and she likes it.
That's cool.
My dad won't.
Yeah.
He came to Warped Tour. When we played in Hartford.
Sure.
I think partly because my mom dragged him.
Sure.
And like,
you need to go see your sons play.
Yeah, he was pissed. He was so mad. He was
Outdoor festival.
Yeah, he was just bummed. Like,
sure.
So I think that's probably the last Make Two Men show he'll ever attend.
That they will attend together.
Yeah.
And so obviously, like, having an English degree, like the common conception of that, where it's like, oh, you'll be a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, did you have an interest in teaching at all, or like that was just never?
Not really. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that I wouldn't hate doing. I think.
Yeah.
But it would have to be I don't want to teach grade school.
No.
I don't really want.
You strike me as a person like you. And honestly, I see a lot of people in bands, like, once they transition out of tour life and they're like, you know, like, oh, this, like, it mimics the feeling of like playing in front of people, right. Where it's like, you know, getting in front of a classroom and kind of like, especially because like even after Make Two Men doesn't exist, like, you're still gonna care about this shit, so you will be able to connect. Where it's like kids, you know, like there won't be this huge disconnect where you'd be like, I understand what you roughly listen to, like I knew what Day to Remember is, like okay.
I don't like it, but I know.
Right. You're like, I'm aware of its existence.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't think I could handle teaching in grade school. That's a level of pressure that, you know.
I understand. Yeah.
So, you know, maybe someday down the line I'll go back to school and maybe take on like a professorship or something like that.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's not necessarily exactly what I see myself doing.
Yeah, no, of course. And then getting a taste, like, are you sort of the business guy of the band in a way? Like,
no, not really. Matt and I share a lot of the responsibilities there, but him being the like on top of shit one.
You're the artist. You're the artiste.
No.
Well, I mean, in regards to, like, obviously, like you were saying, you know, you were. I mean, I know that the band obviously creates the material together and everything. Like, how does the lyric and songwriting process go? Like, as far as, like, you know, where does it start with a germ of an idea from you, and then kind of?
It really all depends. I mean, you know, there are plenty of songs that, like, Mike will write a riff.
Got
like,
it.
You know,
and then you'll build off that.
Mike's really good at, like, writing riffs, recording them on his laptop, and, like, sending them to us. And
that's cool.
That's something that, like, completely escapes me.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, he'll send that stuff, and then I can sort of, like, build it into a structure, and, you know.
Sure.
And then there's other stuff where it's just sort of like
get in a room and jam it out.
You know, fitting lyrics to, you know, stuff that I'm playing on guitar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we sort of all just like hash it out together.
Sure. And but with the sort of, have you ever been interested in working in, like, the music industry at all?
Kind of, sort of, not really.
Right.
You know, in a capacity that didn't make my skin crawl. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and as I'm sure, you know, from my perception of you, like,
sure,
sort of the same vibe. You know, like, I did before the band got really busy. Like, last spring.
Sure.
I started doing, like, publicity for bands.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you know, writing press releases and, like, getting in touch with, you know,
publicists,
press
pitching
outlets and stuff like that. Yeah. So, like, you know, I was a publicist for a couple bands, and then it just got too demanding, and I didn't. There's a lot of, as I'm sure you know, there are a lot of publicists out there that just sit on their ass and collect insane amounts of money.
Stupid amounts of money.
Yeah, I mailed them a press kit.
Right. They didn't do anything.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I sent it.
Right.
Shut up.
Totally.
So I didn't want to be that.
Yeah,
guy.
you didn't want to be that guy. You didn't want to be that guy that sends, like, a blanket email to like 900 press contacts and like, why haven't they written me back? Like, it's like, that's not how you cultivate relationships.
Right. So, you know, that's something that I did and something that I really enjoyed. So, you know, that's something I could see myself doing at some point. But
yeah. I mean, obviously, like, you know, you're in it. You're focused on Make Two Men. Like, that's obviously what takes up a majority of your time. And sort of in conclusion, wrapping things up, where it's like, you know, you have a significant other at home, and, like, obviously, like, maintaining relationships is not easy.
Yeah.
Even when you are home.
Yeah.
And so how have you been able to kind of, move forward with that, sort of be able to like keep that thing together when obviously, like you said, like, because I mean, realistically, last spring was the, upon the release of your record, like that's when you guys were like, here we go. Right. Like, I mean, you were always touring beforehand, but it just got so much busier for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely tough, and like you were saying earlier, every relationship is an insane amount of work.
Right.
And it definitely takes. It takes a lot of work from both sides, and like I'm super lucky in that my girlfriend like is totally down with, putting in her end of the work.
Right.
And the thing about it is like we're just like she's my best friend in the entire world. Like we're very like.
You connect on that level.
Yeah, very comfortable with one another. Very like sort of just. So at the end of the day. It's tough. It's tough being together sometimes.
Totally.
Just because being gone so often, and then like all of a sudden I'm home, and it's like, hey, I'm home. Everything revolves around me again, right? Like, and she's just sort of like, fuck you. You've been gone for like 2 months, and like, I've been here taking care of the dog, paying, like,
Yeah.
And
I know, and that's what a lot of like. I always like when I hit on this point when I'm having these conversations where it's like. Touring is like a suspended state of animation, where it's like you're, it's a whole different life. Yeah. Like different city every day. Like you're existing for hours in these places. Whereas the other people that exist at home, their life continues as is.
Totally.
And then when you pop back in, it takes like I always felt like there was like a good 3 or 4 day compression after tour to like feel normal again, like feel like you step back into a life. And so I always know like the relationship that I was in and still am in, where it was like stepping back into it, like she always gave me those few days because she knows like you're not gonna be fucking normal. The shit that you say is gonna be like you're treating me like a band member.
Right, totally. And so it's taken her a lot of work to adapt to that, and like understand that we like in a lot of ways we really don't have a normal relationship, but works for us, and
and you have obviously like I always tell people that anytime anybody asks about relationships in general, where it's like I feel like truly the best relationships are the ones that take work, like the ones that are like you never hear about the perfect relationships, and it's like that shit doesn't exist. That's in fairy tale land.
Totally.
And like the ones that are worth it are work. Like it shouldn't be. I mean, it should be easy on like just the core levels of your being.
Right. And hopefully you're in a relationship with someone who's not like an unrealistic person, isn't a selfish person, like,
like those core values are there. Like a person who would be like, James, fucking knock it off, get off the road, totally. Like every waking moment that she could like, that wouldn't be a relationship that would last.
So luckily my girlfriend gets that, like she is an unbelievably important part of my life. I if I could, and I would love to spend every single second of every single day with her, but like, and in a lot of ways that's enough for her, so that's good.
For sure.
I think I've gotten really lucky in that regard.
And I just want to hit on one last point before we wrap things up, because I obviously, with you guys' experience on the 2012, almost forgot the year, the 2012 Warped Tour, where it's like so many people don't understand how strenuous of an experience it is. Regardless, even if you are a popular band.
Right,
and for a band like you guys, who are literally playing your hearts out every day, like doing like you would do at a club tour.
Right.
But playing in front of kids that either, for one, don't give a shit about you, like trying to convince them to give a shit about you. Right. And then playing outdoors and playing like all these things, like, to be honest, like it was probably just a super stressful experience for you guys.
It was,
rewarding in some senses of the term.
I think that it had its merits.
Of course.
I think that I had its merits, and more so, I hope that it had its merits, because I guess I'm not really sure if it did.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right?
Totally. So yeah, man, it was a grind, and it was a grind that really wore down on me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I guess I it's very counterintuitive to what I've known music to be.
Yeah.
And what I've known touring to be.
Of course.
It's a completely different world.
Yep.
And for a lot of bands, that completely different world works.
Yep.
You know, it's a machine. You know, and if you're a band of a certain stature, if you're a band of a certain level of popularity, that machine works really well.
Totally. You fit into that cog like it's perfect.
Totally. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't mean that in a like.
No.
These are the sheep. Like, you know, I mean it as a, you know, when it works,
they
works.
Translate well to the Warped Tour crowd, and that's awesome.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then, you know, for other bands, it can really sort of just fucking chew you up and spit you out.
It can test you.
Yeah, totally. And so we were in a fortunate enough position where, like, you know, luckily, like, we were on a bus. Like, you know, we didn't have to drive every day. I can honestly say, if we had to drive in a day in a van, like plenty of bands did,
yep,
we would have fucking lost it.
Totally.
We wouldn't have lasted the entire tour.
Yeah.
But it's a grind, and I'm not used to, like we were talking about, you know. And in this way, I suppose it's sort of juvenile, like just wanting to do what you want to do.
Right.
I'm not used to my life being a grind.
Right.
Even though playing in a band,
it's hard
is
work.
a lot of work.
Of course.
You know, and there's a lot of things in my life that I work very, very hard at, but I work
under your own terms.
Yeah, on my own volition. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it turning into a grind, it turning into this thing that, like,
just felt different.
It felt just bad.
Yeah. And like, you know, to obviously, like, on the flip side, where it's just like you said, you were appreciative of the experience, because obviously it's like Kevin Lyman didn't need to give a shit about you guys.
Oh, dude,
and it's like,
absolutely.
Right. And so it's like, you know, you're appreciative of the opportunity, but it's like you said, not everything fits. Not everything, like, you know, feels good about it. Like, and it's just, it is a test. But I mean, ultimately, like, the fact that you guys did that for however many people did interact with you and be exposed to a different style of music.
Yeah.
Like, that's positive. Whether or not you feel it.
I hope so. For sure. Yeah. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, all those things make sense. You know?
But it was just so tough for you guys, and you in particular.
Yeah. And I mean, that's no one's fault, I think, but my own or our own, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, it's good that you experienced that, because, like, if you didn't take that opportunity, you could look back in a few years and be like, oh, we should have done that, or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
But who knows? But thank you for obviously wanting to hang out and fucking shoot the shit and hear sirens go by. There you have it, everybody. Real talk about Warped Tour. I love that when bands are able to kind of learn from that experience and be able to, you know, figure out if that makes sense for their future or not. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the chat. Come back next week for another brand new episode, and visit propertyofzach.com. All right? Be safe.